Okay. So before we get going with the talk, I'd like to introduce the collective for anyone who's new to us. We're a supportive group of artists who have lived experience with substance use and mental health challenges, who get together to connect, share our work, plan events, and put on exhibitions. So we host one of these virtual talks every month, and this is the 7th in our series. And our next talk will be on August 24th at 12 p.m. with Elizabeth Bunsen. And just a note about sort of the structure for today. As more people come on, it would be nice if everyone could put their questions in the chat, and then we can come back to them at the end of the talk. So now I want to introduce our guest artist, Misoo. Misoo Bang is a local ink, paint, and collage artist whose work explores the intimate and vulnerable. She shares her art around the world in shows, residencies, and by giving artist talks. And we're really excited to have her with us today. Thank you so much for coming, Misoo.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Very excited to be here. I will start the talk with sharing why I became artist, what I was making. So we'll probably talk about 20 years of my artist life. I will start with sharing my screen. Do the desktop share. Okay. Can everybody see okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So my name is Misoo. I'm a local Vermont artist. I work with the theme of female power. I have two series that's going on right now. One is Giant Asian Woman, and one is The Giantesses. Before I talk about these two series, I do want to start with my early works. 1 second. Okay. So I started making art about 20 years ago, a little more than 20 years ago when I first came to America. And when I first came to America, I was 17, 18 years old. And that was the most challenging time of my life, I think I can say that. The reason I came to America was my father passed away and I got diagnosed with type 1 diabetic. So there was a lot of changes in my life, and I came to America to live with my mother that I didn't live with since I was 5. So it was a new environment for me. Language barrier, I could not speak any English at the time. I did not understand anything in school. I didn't have any friends, and I could not make any because I could not talk to anyone or understand anyone. So that's kind of why I start making art as a communication tool. Because my verbal or written language was useless, I start making art as a visual language. So at the time, I was making a lot of artwork that is like emotional self-portrait. So I usually use a lot of girl alone portraits. This one is called The Rainbow, where the girl is trapped in the room with a lot of bird cages that symbolize entrapment. She has a fake wing on her back, but she cannot fly anywhere. I also felt a little alienated in this country. I was introduced to this Western culture and food and nice clothes. And maybe because my mom felt bad that she didn't live with me when I was little, she was buying me a lot of stuff. But without my family in Korea and the language barrier, I just felt very alone, and that there is a banquet in front of my face, but I could not enjoy any of those. I also felt very little, so I used at the time a lot of Alice in Wonderland theme to make myself smaller than my surroundings. Again, in this painting that I call Midnight Tea Party, I have a lot of things that I can enjoy, but I feel very small, very alienated, as if I am in this wonderland that I cannot enjoy. My work kind of a little bit shifted when I became pregnant. I had this fear of what if my baby gets taken away? What if she will get kidnapped? And I started making these drawings called the Bunnyman Series, and the bunny man behind me right here appears in the drawing, and the drawings are usually very colorful, and there are a lot of symbolism inside. I have a nose bleeding because of the fear of what might happen to my daughter. There is a cow on my breast, and with a little hole, there's an eye and a tongue coming out that is stealing my milk. The baby is safe in my womb right now, but the bunnyman is waiting for her to come out so he can take it away. I also had this feeling of fear of that I am walking to this unknown forest, dark forest with my baby. This one is called 22nd Days. And in Korean culture, we have this tradition of staying inside a house for the first 21 days when the mother gives birth to a child. So that's 3 weeks, and that is because to protect your child from germs, from strangers, and to protect the mother too. So this is the 22nd day, the first day that I am allowed in Korean culture to go out with my baby. So I used the Red Riding Hood theme. So I'm wearing my red jacket and my baby is in the car seat. And we are walking inside this dark, mysterious forest that I don't know what might happen next. At the time, when I first became a new mother, I didn't have a time to even go to the bathroom, and didn't have time to take a shower. I breastfed my daughter for 2 years. So I literally felt like I became a cow, and my art became poop. So this is the drawing that I made. I probably made about 200 drawings about postpartum series, which it was fun, and which was also, I really cherish these drawings because it was the most honest drawings that I ever did. And they were very quick. They were maybe 15, 20 minutes each, because I didn't have time to set up easel, paintings, materials, plan something, sketch it out, and paint for 3 weeks. I only had 10 minutes here, 5 minutes here, maybe 30 minutes there, while my baby is sleeping. So I made a lot of these drawings using the color pencils and oil pastels, something that I can just grab it, make something, and put it away. This one I depicted myself as a little bug, little insect, and my daughter is on top of me, driving me wherever she wants to go. And this one is called Day and Night. At the time, I also made a lot of these drawings about the Bunnyman. And this Bunnyman is not a fun guy, but he's a perpetrator. He's a kidnapper. I use a watercolor, and he has this big, scary bunny mask on with sharp teeth, and he allures children with his colorful colors and masks. And I was afraid of him. Also made a bunch of little monsters at the time. They kind of have all phallic symbols to them, very colorful, but a little creepy. And when I was making these drawings, I didn't even know what I was making. After about 10, 15 drawings, there was no planning. I just start making them. And sometimes I will be surprised of what I was drawing. So that's why I think these drawings were so powerful, even though they are very childlike. They do not have much technique to it. I didn't spend a lot of time on it. I feel like these drawings came like really deep in my heart. This one depicting my child now, she's walking and she saw the bunnyman, she wants to play with him. But I at least made him armless and feetless so he cannot come and grab her. This is another Red Riding Hood theme where my daughter is in the closet hiding and she sees the wolf eating a child, and on her left eye, she sees the wolf sees her and like walking towards her. Another, this guy, mysterious guy kidnapping children, and I am a useless, I'm a cow crying behind a tree, not knowing what to do. After a while, I start collecting porcelain dolls in a garage sales, in flea market. They were maybe once loved dolls and now they were abandoned. And I strangely attracted to these. And I bought them, and my studio was filled with the dolls, like 20, 30 of those. So it looked kind of creepy. And I start drawing these dolls in very disturbing ways. I stripped them and I drew them as if they were getting raped. I made a bunch of these drawings and I called them Rape Doll Series. While I was making these dolls, I was a new mother and I was also a graduate school student, and made me think, why am I making these dolls? Why am I attracted to these dolls? And without taking care of them, why am I depicting them in very disturbing ways? I also made this painting called Gentleman's Collection. All of these dolls are the collection of the gentleman who is on the right side of the painting behind the screen. He is looking through this little hole inside his room. And the girl in the middle is also the part of his collection. And I gave her a rustic horse tricycle that she can't really escape with this. She cannot go very fast or go very far. I also include bird cages in this painting to show the entrapment. This is another large painting of Rape Doll series. I called her Raped in Motion. And around this time, I was reading a lot of books, and I understood that I had a childhood memory of a domestic family abuse, child sexual abuse. So when I recovered that memory, it was shocking. It was very shocking, and it was also kind of enlightening. It made sense why I was making this series, why I was including Bunnyman in my drawing, why I was so scared of my child taken away. I also cut these drawings and cut the limbs of these dolls and splash the ink on them and experiment on. And I made a few more paintings about that and about what kind of feeling I was going through. And this is actually the first painting that I depicted my perpetrator in my painting, called Monster and Me. And I did not put his actual face on the painting, but I made him look like a monster. I am also scared of water, and the room is filling with water. And the monster's fat is dissolving to the water and floating towards me and climbing up. And it shows how weak and how powerless I was at the time, and how I was scared of what happened to me. And at the time when I recovered the memory, I could not understand that if I was 10-year-old or 30 years old self. I was keep going back and forth about this helpless child to a mother. So it was very confusing time for me. And it also really disturbed me. Every time I made these images, I was going back and forth of my childhood. And that sometimes made me not able to make any art. So that's why I went on abstract pieces. It was much easier for me because none of these were literally telling me what happened at the time. So I used this symbolic meaning of ink piece as a perpetrator, and I drew little child's hair underneath it, which symbolizes a child victim. I wanted to explain how helpless a child victim is, especially when the perpetrator is a family member of hers or his, how they do not have anywhere to get help from, and how completely overpowered they are from the perpetrator. So this piece, Over My Silent Body, it is 60 inches height and 116 inches wide. I wanted to make this painting in a big piece of paper because I wanted to show that these two people are struggling on the paper, on the space that is enough for them to struggle. And I depicted them, I displayed them horizontal way to depict a bed to two people can lie down. This one is the next one that I made called Ripped Apart. I include some colors here symbolizing the child's body fluid coming out. And I also include a bunch of very fragile children's hairs underneath it. And I spent a lot of time drawing these hairs, but when I splash the inks on top of it, it is very quick. I do not have a lot of control over them. So that also has a symbolic meaning because child, that is also portraying myself and also my daughter. But the ink symbolizing perpetrator, which I do not have 100% control over them. So another detail piece. And after a while, before I made this painting, after I splashed ink first, and in the negative space, I added the hair drawings in between. But to save time, because these hair drawings takes a long time, and then it was so painful to just sit down and lying down on the floor and draw the hairs. And I realized that that's not the point. That's not how it's been. The child victim was there first, and it was ruined by the perpetrator. So this piece, I start making the hair drawing first. I filled up the whole paper with a hair drawing. I spent about 300 hours on it. And after like 10 minutes sitting there and drawing, my wrists start hurting and back hurts, the knee hurts, everything hurts. And I am sitting there crawling for like 6-7 hours at a time to make this drawing. And that pain was also significant to me because the more pain, the more time I put it on this drawing, the stronger the hair becomes. And instead of drawing children's hair now, I start making this hair a little more stronger and darker that symbolize a mother's hair. And after this, I drew a child's hair underneath it. And this is me ruining this hair drawing that I did for 300 hours. And when I looked at it, it upset me so much. I felt like I ruined the piece that I worked for so long. And then my graduate school show was in like 2 weeks. I didn't know what to do. So I waited until the ink completely dry, and I went back and I start scratching these marks I pour water and scrub them. You can see some nail marks of me. So on top of my work, I was literally physically fighting the symbol of perpetrator. And I was worried that if I scratch all this, I might remove the hair drawing that was underneath. But after a while, I realized that the mother's hair and the child hair was still there. The mother's hair was still protecting the child's hair. And I call this I am the barrier, because I, as a mother and as a survivor, and with my memory and experience, I am protecting my daughter from what might happen. I did a lot of experiments on this paper. I used this paper called Yupo Paper, and they are made with like waterproof plastic material, so I can burn them. And when I pour ink and water on top of it, the paper does not absorb these inks. And the inks and water just move so beautifully, maybe 2-3 days until they are completely dry. So I can just sit there and watch them moving around and drying up. I also use acrylic mediums that kind of symbolize men's ejaculation on top of my paper. This is one of the ink piece that I include mine and my daughter's portraits inside. And this is kind of key piece of my work, because none of my abstract ink pieces has a figure in them. So this piece kind of gives the viewers idea of what this painting is about, what the whole series is about. Maybe it's struggling between mother and a child. Maybe it's struggling between a mother trying to protect the child. And this one is 8 feet tall and 15 feet wide. And it is titled Cocoon. After a while, I stopped displaying these works horizontally. I start displaying this vertically, and I also use tapes. So before I pour ink, I put the tape all over the paper and pour ink on top of it. And when the ink is dried, I remove the tapes from the paper. And while I am removing the tape, I am also removing the paint that was dried on top of it. So I felt more powerful about that. I felt like I am literally removing perpetrator from my territory. The reason I start displaying this vertically instead of horizontally is before I was invited to the perpetrator's territory, I was a victim, and I was a mother that is trying to protect my child from the perpetrator's territory. But now the vertical piece that mimics a mother's long hair, and at the time I had a very long hair, so I am inviting the perpetrator to my territory. These are 5 pieces of vertical pieces together. So if you can see, my hair is getting stronger and angrier. And it satisfied me that how I transformed it from a child victim, this powerless child victim, to a protector, a mother, and to a creator who has this power to display the perpetrator and show to the public. This is at Champlain College when I had a residency there. This is how it started. Sometimes I put tapes on the paper first. Sometimes I just pour the ink first. These papers were getting bigger and bigger. Now it is 5 feet wide and 30 feet long. And I include this piece to show the scale of the paper. So you can kind of see me sitting in the middle. I start work them and also cut these papers. The reason my paper was getting bigger and bigger and bigger was because I always felt like I was entrapped in this rectangular cornered shapes. So one day I got drunk during the artist residency. I came back to the studio and looked at my rectangle shaped paper, and it made me so upset. I grabbed scissors and start cutting them, and I warped them and I stick them on the wall. This is my daughter visiting me while the residency. And that made me feel good. I was not just displaying them, but I was forming them again and inviting the viewers to this dark cave where I once have been. This was the show at Champlain College. I call this one Chrysanthemum, and I also think this piece as my last piece of the Inner Struggle Fighting on Paper series. The reason I put chrysanthemum all over this paper is because the chrysanthemum has symbolic meaning in Korean culture. It is a funeral flower. We use a lot of chrysanthemum in funerals. So it has this meaning of sending the people away, sending your loved one away, sending your memory away. And I worked with these ink pieces about 4 years, and I felt like, okay, I would not be the person that, as if it never happened to me, that child sexual abuse never happened to me, but I found a peace in between that memory and myself now. I made myself powerful, and I felt like I had a control over that. So I made this piece chrysanthemum as if I was sending the struggle that I was going through. The next series I started doing was the Giant Asian Girl series, and it started like this. I start replacing Western fairy tale princesses into Asian women. The reason I started doing that was when I first came to America. When I was growing up in Korea, I read a lot of Western fairy tales, like Christian Andersen and Grimm's Brothers, Disney movies, and Richard Scary Stories. It was part of our culture too. All the children read these. It's classic children's story. And when I moved to America, I realized, okay, these living in America as an Asian woman, I didn't feel like I will never be the main character in this country, that I was always an outsider and a stranger and extras. So I start replacing these princesses to Asian women. This one is from Sleeping Beauty. And another one, Alice in Wonderland. And I made them bigger than her surroundings because I want them to be more powerful than her surroundings, not like usual Asian women who are usually objectified and usually praised because of her small body. In America, I realized that Asian women are looked in a different way. This one is Emiji from the musical Miss Saigon. Miss Saigon and Madame Butterfly, the opera. They all deal with the Asian woman. In here in Miss Saigon, this girl is how do you say? Like geisha. She sells her body. She's a prostitute, and she's like so lucky in this musical, very lucky to find this wild male saver. And I was so upset by how these Asian women were depicted, how they were weak, but very exotic at the same time, how they are exotic but faithful, and they will sacrifice their body, their life to be faithful for the happiness of their partner, and how the Asian women in living in America were all portrayed in that way. And I looked at my scientists again, and I realized all of my scientists, women, because at this time I used these models from the magazine pictures, they all had this poses that typical Asian woman stereotype typical poses have. They are all looking down and looking away. They had fashionable clothing, had nice makeup, but they did not have control over what was going on. And I realized this is not what I want these women to be portrayed for. Like in Western culture, the woman has been portrayed in that way for many, many years. This is the birth of Venus, how they are weightless. And this woman, the goddess of love, the Venus, is floating over the top of the water. She is foam-like. She almost looks like she doesn't have a bone, and she is just alluring viewers with her gazes and just waiting to be raped. This one is Emiji from Ophelia. Ophelia she killed herself, and how she was portrayed so beautifully, how they idealize the sleeping woman, the weak woman, sick woman, and also a suicidal woman. She is literally useless in this water, but she looked very beautiful. And I compared this with how Asian women were portrayed in this country as well, how they look very young. They always compliment about how young we look as an Asian woman. Very exotic, have pale skins enough for white men to like them. They will be obedient and faithful, but they will also like fulfill the wildest sex dreams. Compared to that, there are some male portraits, historical male portraits. The left one is Napoleon. The one on the right is Theodore Roosevelt. How they are different than the female portrait, how they were very confident and strong, how they look intelligent. So I start changing my giant Asian woman from the previous objectified magazine models to more certain, to more direct poses. And I start using myself as a self-portrait because I was the easiest model that I can get to. So I took my pictures and started drawing them. I did not worry about what I was wearing. Sometimes I was just wearing sweatpants and just jean shirts. I also made myself surrounded by the high culture of Western art. This one, I surrounded myself with Gothic, Baroque, and Romanesque building to show that these women in my paintings are more powerful than her surrounding. This is kind of how I start. I take my pictures, made a sketch on the panel. This is the first layer, the second layer. And I start playing with the collages. This one I put Paul Bunyan underneath my feet. Paul Bunyan is the American giant hero. And I am not stepping on him. I am just check, oh, you're there. You're so little. I surround myself with the Western culture, wars, soldiers. There's some American flag in them. The purpose of these paintings is to reverse what is going on in the society and how I felt living here for 20 plus years, how I was feeling so small, how I was always very quiet. I was working in my previous work for 3 years, and I was getting discriminated opinions and comments all the time, every day. And I like sucked it up for 3 years. I did not say, I did not fight. And I was pouring into my work, like, this is how I feel. I finally quit my job after the Georgia Atlanta shooting, the murder of an Asian woman. I was so shook by that incident, and so was the whole like community of Asian community was about how COVID coronavirus kind of started, how they like made it sound like it came from Asian people, and how we were just treated as if we were viruses. I quit my job, and because I was making this work, I felt like I was lying to myself the whole time. I was making this powerful giant Asian woman, and I was not living as if I was. I start using models, the volunteers. You start using local women instead of myself anymore. So I just used myself as a model because I could not have any other model. But after a while, after some shows, I start having some Asian friends who wants to be my models. So I use them and show their powers and share their powers. I include this picture of the show to show the scale of the painting. So these are 36 by 48 sizes. And I usually make these giantesses, like her head and feet are touching the top and bottom of the canvas. Her elbows and hands are also touching it. So she can be physically be larger than what she is in this canvas. She is completely taking over the space. And these women are mostly sitting down because if I am drawing the stand-up poses, she won't be able to take very much spaces. So if they are standing up, they are usually bigger than the life size people. This is Wei Wei. I want to share some of their quotes that they shared with me. And this one, she's also a local Vermont artist, Vermont resident, and she's an activist. And she says, as an Asian woman, I am not allowed to be inquisitive or assertive. I am supposed to be demure and compliant, not gregarious and tenacious. My mother told me that I can achieve anything that I want to. Despite my gender and despite my skin color, despite what white men, old men think of me, I can overcome those stereotypes. This one is Mina. I usually ask them to wear whatever you want when they come take a picture, when they come and share their stories. And Mina, thankfully, she wore her wedding dress, and she's an Indian descendant. And she put the jewelries and necklaces that her mother and her grandmother gave it to her. I usually ask them, wear whatever that makes you the most powerful. And I do not care if they are wearing nothing or their wedding dress or like pajamas. If you are powerful with that, that's how I will depict you. And Mina says, I am kind, I am empathetic, I am friendly, I am beautiful and powerful. I wanted to participate because maybe when someone looks at this painting of me, they can see what I see in me. I also started this series called Giantesses, and the Giantess series is about the survivals of domestic violence. And a lot of these models are survivors of rape, survivors of abuse. And the reason I use local women is because to let people know that this happens to us, this happens to myself, this happens to our daughters, our mother, our sisters. It's not something that we watch in the movie, it's not something that we read in a book. It is our friends. So I want to use as much as local people as possible. So when the viewer sees them, they recognize them. Like, I know this, her name's Queen. I know this girl, I went to school with her. Like, this happened to her and she is strong now. Her name is Emily. She's also a Vermont resident. And this is Carmen. And Carmen also wanted to share this quote. She said, "Love is what they called it. All explained to me that their violences were an act of love. I'm sorry you think that, but I loved you. I didn't rape you. I loved you." Women are viewed and analyzed. Women are manhandled by naughty boys in museum who know that we already indicated with a sign, "Please do not touch. Do not touch, please." The image of a woman who looks like me is not painted for you to look at. She is not painted for you to enjoy her. The woman in these paintings and all the women not painted are not objects for handling. There's more to these women than their faces, their bodies, their relation to you, or their utilities for others. There is more to these women, these people, all these things on display than one can see. You may look, you might see. Do not touch, please. It's another local Vermont woman. Her name's Carol. Trauma is a wily thing. As a woman in my 50s, it has taken me on a wild ride through decades of my life. Some decades I no longer remember. Some I wish I didn't remember. And some decades where survival was just about white knuckling it, day by day. Growing up a victim of sexual abuse under my father's unyielding physical and emotional control, I never had a chance to see who I was without trauma. Now I began to tear down walls and find my voice, learning to not betray myself and speak my truth. And now I have a giantess looking right back at me, one who looks just like me. I am so inspired by these women, their courage and their words and their poses. These people are my gifts that was provided to me, and like I appreciate everybody that volunteered to be here, because it is not easy to talk about your darkest trauma that you have been going through, and understanding that having your face out there, your name and your stories next to it, it needs a lot of courage. So in the Giantess series, in the Giant Asian Woman series, I am celebrating their power, their the story of a survival and how they become so powerful. And that was my last slide. If you have any questions, you can ask away or put it in the chat room. Maybe Sarah can read it for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Does anyone have any questions?
I don't really have a question. I just had a comment. I find your work very, very powerful, and thank you for sharing them with us today.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for being here. If you have a question that you do not want to share right now, you can also email me at misoo@misoo.org, MISOO, and I will try my best to answer that as well.
Thank you.
Misoo, this is Colleen. I'm sorry my video isn't working on my computer, but I just feel awed by you and your work and your raw courage to share your story, to share their stories, and it makes me want to cry.
Thank you.
Very, very strong emotionally, and how your whole story is just impressive. And you know, as an older woman myself, I haven't experienced what some of these women have experienced, but I feel like I empathize, and I feel a solidarity with all of them, and with you for sharing that, for showing us so graphically. And these giantesses are amazing. They're just, I love how you have evolved from feeling like so scared and so small to just taking over and helping other women do the same with your art. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Colin. Thank you so much for your comments, and it really gave me a courage to, you know, when I first started, it was about my story. When I started Inner Struggle, fighting on paper, the abstract ink pieces, I think I was trying to figure out what I need to do with that. How do I need to live with it? And while I was giving artist talk, I had so many people came to me, especially a lot of women, and shared their stories with me and said, I've been there, I went through that too. And I researched it, and I saw the number of percentile of the victims, and how many people, how most of us experienced that when we were young and when we are old now. And understand this is not my individual problem. We are all going through this, and we need to like address this more seriously. So that's what made me start doing the Giant Asian Girls and Giantess series. And then I am just so thankful and grateful for people to understand and wants to participate as well. But thank you for your comments, Colin. Susanna, you have a question?
I think you're muted, Susanna.
Can't hear you yet. There you
I'm
go.
sorry. I thought I was unmuted before. Okay, Susanna, so I missed most of your talk because I received a call back from the Lieutenant Governor. This lady who's on now that you have the painting reminds me of Joan Baez. I know, I understand generally what you said, but unfortunately, as I say, I missed most of it, but I'll go online and look to see what I've been through. Sexual abuse as a child, sexual abuse from doctors. I went through a sexual assault in the Arctic where I thought I was going to die, but I got through that, and it took me a few years, but as coordinator of Women in Crisis at that time in the Arctic, and was able to talk with other women across the state who were coordinators, directors of crisis programs, and got to a point with that particular assault that and if it bothers anybody, please just tell me to stop but that I was able to talk about it. I can talk about it and it doesn't bother me at all anymore. Even back then, it took 4 or 5 years, but um, I held nothing against the perpetrator by the time I got through and was able, as I say, to accept what happened. And but I believe for me, talking about it, being able not to stuff it like so many women have to, but to be able to talk about it. And in this case, with other women who had been through either domestic violence or sexual assaults or abuse, because we were early on back in 79 through 83, 84 in Alaska. And a lot of people come from all over and had experienced some, as I say, similar things. Um, so that really helped, as I say, over the years, it helped me get through it. And so 4 or 5 years afterwards, as I say, I had nothing, I held no animosity against the perpetrator. We never found him. I suspect he ended up in jail or perhaps was dead the way he was going. And um, but I also came to peace and terms with it in my own life. Some of the other things I haven't per se, but they are pretty much in the background. What I'm dealing with now, and the reason the lieutenant governor called, and I'm so glad that not the lieutenant governor, the chief of staff to the lieutenant governor called, was because I was put involuntary into, and it was a setup. I know it was a setup by NCSS of Franklin County, Northwestern Counseling and Support Services, and in collusion with the hospital up there. And that has been, I have complex PTSD, which, as most of you probably know, is layers of PTSD. And that was another layer. And probably the hardest layer of my life. I mean, when I was in the assault in the Arctic, it was 10 below zero and I was outside. I thought I was going to die, but I came to terms with that. I was going to die. So I won't take up too much time, but I've been advocating for nearly 3 years now, and I still advocate. I understand some laws have been changed, and that there's some policies and procedures that have changed, but the people who are telling me this are not willing to tell me what those exact things are. And I think it must be just that they don't want it to come back to them, and um, that maybe they might get in trouble or I would sue the heck out of. But I'm coming up on 3 years, and that's the longest you can sue. And I'm trying to find out. Not that I want. Yeah, I would like to sue the heck out of them, but um, I'm not at a point where I can even do grievances yet, and it's been nearly 3 years. But anyway, that's why I missed most of your stuff having to go. But I would definitely look at your. Well, this is being recorded, right? So we will be able to
Mhm.
see it again.
Yes, you can watch it, I think, at Howard Center website. And I also have different artist talks, I think, on YouTube. If you type my name, you will be able to see it too.
Great.
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Misoo, I have a quick question. This is Luke. Thank you so much for your talk. I also was really awed by your story and the way you really generously shared about your experiences. And I was just wondering, like, what's next for your work? Are you continuing to make like sort of these portraits of survivors, or do you know yet? I mean, it's for me, I'm an artist, and it's like hard to know sometimes when I'm finishing a body of work and starting a
Right.
new one. So
I
just
totally
curious.
understand. Yeah, thanks for asking. So I usually have about 4 or 5 years time limit of one series. And that's about time when I get tired of it and then I cannot make it anymore, or it would not meaning that powerful to me anymore. So I move on. So right now I did not share anything because I am still developing, but I am working on Mandola series. I lately got into Buddhism and learning about bodhisattvas, which is not Buddha, but these beings that is in between human world and then the gods, the Buddhas, and they are choose to be inside the human world to help to lead this world to a better places. So I am working on these cities called the lotus flower, and they are each like the giantesses, but now each models are my bodhisattvas, and they are closing their eyes and in more of a very meditating way. And I am also including a lot of their symbols that is important to them and also empowering them. And I am making this oval or big round shapes of panels, and that's going to be my next series. I'm still developing and I'm still writing about it and figuring out, because I am not a Buddhist. I was never a Buddhist. I was actually born and raised Christians, which I am not anymore. So I am like in a learning phase and very exciting phase of my artist life right now.
Yeah, that does sound exciting.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah.
Suzanne, I'm just gonna, I'm being rude here, but, so excuse my rudeness, but I just wanted to say that the Baha'i faith in India has a lotus flower building. One of their worship centers is a huge lotus flower. So when you mentioned lotus flower, I thought about that, and it's very beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, the lotus flower grew, they have roots in this muddy water, and they purifies this water, muddy water, and then it blooms beautifully on top of the water. So that really gave me an inspiration. Sorry about my clock behind. It does that every hour.
Yeah, speaking of which, it's 1:02. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to send them to me and I can pass them on to Misoo, or I think she gave her email earlier. So yeah, I just want to thank everyone for coming, especially Misoo. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, and is there anywhere you want to point us to see more of your work or to purchase your work?
So I have a show, 3 people show in Paula Estate Gallery in Newburyport, Massachusetts, and that opens September 9th. I believe that's Thursday. Opening it will be 6 o'clock. I'll have 4 of my scientists showing there, and I just had this schedule. Next year, 2022, in March, I'll have a solo show in Northern Vermont University Gallery. So that's in Johnson, about an hour away from here. So if you're around, please stop by, say hi.
Awesome.
I see and I'm interrupting you again. I'm sorry, and I know we're done, but no human is illegal. Is that your T-shirt, or is that a T-shirt that's available someplace else?
I bought this in Amazon. Do you have Amazon account?
Oh yeah.
Yes, you can buy anything
I
there.
like it.
Yeah, if you
I guess you can.
type it,
That's
you
great.
might able to find it.
It's
Great.
great.
I get a lot of
T-shirt,
comments on these t-shirts when I wear them.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody.
Nice
Thank
meeting
you.
you all.
Yeah.
Nice
Good
meeting
talking.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.